All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, we want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, and Kakodash. Giving double honors to the apostles and the elders of great millstone. Shalom to the hopefully elect. Shalom to all the brothers out here laboring in this truth with sincerity. Shalom to the few sisters that watch. Just coming back with another lesson. The spirit, hit me to make this lesson as far as, the milk, versus the meat. The milk is the foundation of the scriptures, as far as, learning. You have to learn the milk first. And when we speak of the milk, it's the simple things, or the things that are easy to understand, not the deep sayings, not the super deep breakdowns, which would be considered the meat. As a baby is growing, the baby don't come out the womb eating solid foods, and definitely not meat. The baby is brought up on milk, because meat would be hard for the baby to even chew with no teeth or even digest. His system is not built, to take on the harder things as far as meat. So, you have to come in this truth as babes. I myself, have been in, for a while, but upon recently, becoming a part of GMS, hey, you had to go back to the milk, man. You have to be brought up, under order. Even though you may know some scriptures, you may know some breakdowns, it's a totally different thing when you're organized and in the scriptures. You have elders, you have elder brothers, that's been in the faith longer than you have, that's been through different things, has been tried and tested. But, with that being said, we're going to get into the scriptures, man. So like you for the long rant. But this is the book of Isaiah chapter 28. And let's see, we'll go to verse 9. It says, whom shall he teach knowledge? And whom shall he make understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast. As we see, them that are weaned from the milk. Says, for precept must be upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little. And this is one reason why the Christians can't get it, man. Because they haven't been weaned from the milk. They have no clue. They haven't came up under people to teach them, men, to teach them correctly, shall I say. So we'll go and see, what's going to this word milk. Wean from the milk. Milk suckling, all newborn babes are practically, brought up on the milk. Let's see what the NLT says. It says, who does the Lord think we... Well, this is already like it's going on. Who does the Lord think we are? They ask. Why does he speak to us like this? We are little children just recently weaned. But, basically, you have to be built up in the faith to be able to understand what's going on in the scriptures, man. You just can't just jump out here and think you're going to understand scriptures without being taught, even if you say you've been in the truth 5, 6, 10 years, unless you're just super dedicated and the Lord is really dealing with you like that, it's some things that you're not going to be able to understand. And even if you do understand the scriptures, you still have to be rooted in the faith. You still have to be held accountable for your actions. Even if you're in the faith and, you out here living willy-nilly, man, the Lord can just snatch the spirit away from you at any given time. We see this recent video that's going around of this bug out saying he's the most high, smoking a black and mild. That, hey, something went wrong along the way. Jake wasn't rooted in the faith. I don't know what his problem is. Basically, Yahweh Shem Yahushua snatched the spirit away from him, and now he's bugged out. But this is really to the newer brothers in the truth, man. Don't just jump out here thinking that you're gonna overstep brothers or become, of status, when you're in account, man, because that's not the case. You have to come in from the bottom, learn from the bottom up, man, because it's things that you have, it's knowledge that you have access to that you're not, you don't have access to when you're not in account, man. It's knowledge that's public, but you don't put forth the effort to go forward with it, man. Speaking of maybe like the alphabet, Hebrew alphabet. If nobody is telling you, hey, you need to know this, do this, depending on the type of brother you are, you won't do it. Or the prayers, you won't do it. All this is a part of the milk, man. These are the foundation of being in the truth. So let's continue on to the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 3. And we'll start from the top. It says, and I, brethren, could not speak unto you as unto spiritual, but unto carnal, even as unto babes in Hamashiach. And why is this? Because they were not built up. They were not ready to be spoken to spiritually. They were not ready to receive the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that was being brought forth, for the simple fact they were not built up. They was just, being worldly. You can't come straight out of the world and think you're going to understand the deep saying of the scriptures, man. It's just like going back to school again, or going when you first started school. You had to learn your ABCs. You had to learn how to count. You had to learn how to add. You had to learn how to subtract. It's the same thing within this truth, man. And age doesn't play a part in it. So it says, and I, brethren, could not speak unto you. And this is Apostle Paul speaking to the church of Corinth. It says, and I, brethren, could not speak unto you as unto spiritual, but as unto carnal, even as unto babes in Hamashiach. I have fed you with milk and not with meat, for hitherto ye were not able to bear it, neither yet now are able. Or either yet now are ye able. So let's see, let's get in the NLT. It says, dear brothers and sisters, when I was with you, I could not talk to you as I would to spiritual people. I had to talk to you though you belong to this world. Salakia. Start over. Salakia. It says, dear brothers and sisters, when I was with you, I couldn't talk to you as I would to spiritual people. I had to talk as though you belonged to this world, or as though you were infants in the Christian life. I had to feed you with milk, not with solid food, because you weren't ready for anything stronger, and you still aren't ready. So that's pretty much put it plain and simple right there. Just if you say you're in the truth, whether it be 4 or 5 years or whatever, it's still things that you don't know. It's still things that you need to know, and it's still things that you're going to be held accountable for if you're in account. Which is a beautiful thing, because it forces you to learn. And that's what we all here to do. We're here to learn and get built up, to the point where, hey, we got to defend the gospel, man. Can't be out here just willy-nilly. So let's go to the book of 1 Peter, chapter 2. And hey, even what I'm bringing out now, man, this is the milk. This is the milk. The foundation of learning. This is the book of 1 Peter chapter 2. Starting from the top, it says, "Wherefore, laying aside all malice and all guile and hypocrites and envies, so like hypocrisies and envies and all evil speaking, as newborn babes desire the sincere milk of the word, that ye may grow thereby." So you're not going to grow in the faith. You're not going to grow in this truth without receiving that milk first. The basics of the scriptures, the baseline of the truth, the like I said, the alphabet, the prayers, your basic Hebrew words, things of that nature, man. It all plays a part. It's like building blocks. The tribes, the 12 tribes, who they are, the land mass, and how it relates, to present day, who they are present day. All these things are milk, and you can never get enough of the milk. Like, I'm still going back, studying these things, because, you study, you learn, and then you stop. And you tend to slip on some things, but you gotta constantly revert back to that milk. That's your structural foundation of the scriptures, man. So you have to constantly, even though you can't be prideful, man. You gotta constantly search out the milk, because without that milk, you're not gonna understand the deep sayings of the scriptures. The things that are hard to understand. And yes, it's things in the scriptures that are hard to understand. So let's go to the book of Hebrews chapter 5. And we'll drop down to verse 12. It says, for when for the time ought to be Salakia. It says, for when for the time ye ought to be teachers, ye have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, are become such as have need of milk and not strong meat. So even though you may have been in the faith 2 years, you think you know scriptures, you jumped out, teaching on the streets, you and another brother got together, and I have done this. I was with some bug outs, fell off with the bug outs, the water Yahweh Shem Yahushai. And now, I'm at this point, it says, for when for the time ye ought to be teachers, ye need that one teach you again, and it's things that I have to be taught over again, the correct way. You got wild children out here, man, running wild. We wild children, man. The wild children of Israel, man, just out here, teaching and doing what we thought was right through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, of course, but it's a structural way that things must be done. So we'll read it again. It says, for when for the time ye ought to be teachers, ye have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of the Most High, Yahweh Shem Yahushai, and are become such as have need of milk and not of strong meat. Let's see, verse 13, it says, for everyone that uses milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness, for he is a babe. But strong meat belongs to them that are of full age, even those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil. So these are your elders, man. Your elders, your bishops, especially, from Apostle Home down. These are the men, it says, but strong meat belongeth to them that are of full age, especially the apostles, man. The knowledge that they have is at this point, man, they're like walking dictionaries, encyclopedias, all that. So this is the level that we want to reach, as far as in this truth, in this knowledge, man. You want to be on that level at some point, but you must build yourself up, and that's really the point of this lesson, man. You have to be built up, and you have to have men teach you the correct way and guide you the correct way. That's really, the focus of this lesson, So, Lord willing, it was edifying. And, we want to constantly give our praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Shalom.